Right now, Cardano's competitors are scrambling to explain away the imminent launch of DeFi on our network. The idea of inexpensive DeFi transactions that are deterministic as to state and fees on an actually decentralized and scalable blockchain that doesn't crash defies credulity if you're already invested in the legacy crypto systems that are broken by high fees, centralization, outages, or security breaches, probably a combination of those even. Cardano is the real blockchain of the people. The only question now is how long the critics are willing to deny reality. Ready? Let's go. If you were confused by that intro screen, don't worry, you didn't click on an old video, but we're going to review where we are now on that Cardano denial curve that I introduced back in June. We're also going to talk about SundaeSwap's recent attempt to craft expectations for launch congestion, what that really means, where that leaves the Cardano critics, and where we go from here. If you've been around this channel for a while, you may remember the Cardano denial curve that I introduced back in June. Here it's labeled as the ADA denial curve just because it's fewer letters. But we're not talking about ADA, the cryptocurrency. Specifically, we're talking about the entire Cardano ecosystem. So the idea, not in these words, but the overall idea, the spirit of the idea back then was that, hey, Cardano is something brand new. And it's basically combining the expressiveness of Ethereum with the attack surface of Bitcoin. It's going to make everybody in Bitcoin and Ethereum angry because I think, for the last several years, it's been obvious that unquestionably, Ethereum has greater expressiveness, at least compared to the current manifestation of Bitcoin. I know they have all kinds of aspirations of becoming more expressive, but current manifestation, Ethereum, far more expressive. But we also see an incredible amount of security breaches in Ethereum, an incredible amount. It has a much greater attack surface than Bitcoin. Cardano comes along. It's an extended unspent transaction output system, much higher security, we hope, and equivalent expressiveness to Ethereum, or pretty close as we want to come. However close we want to come, we can kind of go there, given security and other considerations. It was obvious that there was already a huge amount of anger and hate out there. And it kind of looked like at that point, the Bitcoin and Ethereum crowds were sort of transitioning from, kind of like denial that Cardano even exists into more of a sheer anger, hate kind of phase. And believe me, I'm not going to claim that that phase is currently over. We're still receiving a large amount of anger, hate. In fact, it's only peaking right now. We're kind of at peak Cardano denial right now, I think. But I think we're sort of on the verge of a transition into the bargaining phase. I think the people that are currently angry and hating Cardano for what it represents, kind of the best of both worlds of Bitcoin and Ethereum, I think we're about to launch DeFi. And as soon as they see a DEX, we already have one DEX, SundaeSwap, but as soon as they see a DEX as hotly as anticipated as SundaeSwap, which is going to see a huge amount of use, as soon as they see a DEX like that receiving that level of use, I think it's going to require a transition on behalf of these Bitcoin and Ethereum maximalists. Here's why. The crux of their argument has always been that Cardano is somehow a falsehood. EUTXO is wrong somehow. It's not right. Sure, UTXO works great for Bitcoin, but Bitcoin lacks the expressiveness, the programmability, the smart contracts. When you go for those things, you must go to account balance. Smart contracts must take place in the account balance system. It must look like Ethereum. In their minds, Cardano is a whole cloth falsehood. Therefore, there will never be any large dApps that see big adoption. No Uniswaps, no Sushi swaps, no compounds, no Aves, no MakerDAOs, no curves, no Decentralands with all of the NFTs running on a Cardano. Those things will not come to pass. But that argument is now dissolving. With SundaeSwap's testnet, there were big barriers to entry. I mean, they seem trivial, but knowing how to go into your wallet and change your wallet to testnet mode, and then being able to acquire the testnet tokens of various types to actually do stuff on the testnet. These are actual barriers to entry for normal people. It's not as easy as just using something on mainnet. And the SundaeSwap testnet still saw huge use. There was huge adoption for a testnet. It was crazy. Just that many people figuring out how to use a testnet was kind of astounding. Mainnet will be crazier because it'll be easier. You won't have to switch into testnet mode. You could just use it. The Cardano deniers will lose their claim that there's no dApp being used on Cardano. The people who are angry about the falsehood of Cardano in their minds are going to have to move the goalposts. They're going to have to start bargaining. They're going to have to come up with some other reason why Cardano is somehow a falsehood or wrong. The old arguments will no longer stand. Not only is SundaeSwap going to receive adoption, it's going to be the object of so much adoption that SundaeSwap had to drop a Medium article about congestion on launch just to shape expectations. And there was one line in this Medium article. The Medium article is not that long. It's not like gigantic. It's probably right about the right length. But there was one line in here that freaked everybody out. Starts right here. To be as transparent as we can, we want to inform you all that while orders, including swapping, providing liquidity, and withdrawing liquidity, may take days to process, just that first part of that sentence freaked everybody out. May take days to process. All of a sudden, the critics and supporters alike were concerned. But in reality, this is actually great news. This is news that the demand for use of this first monstrous Cardano dApp, the demand to use that dApp is going to far outstrip the dApp's ability to supply usage. They can't even handle the number of people who want to use this dApp. Actually, they can. We'll get into that in just a second. But if you want to use it, you're going to have to kind of queue up, and it might take them a second to get through your orders on their dApp, your orders in their DEX. It's going to take them a second to get to those. In some cases, it may take up to days to process those because they're expecting such a surge of use of this dApp. It's actually not even SundaeSwap. It's the network, which we'll get into in just a second. Where have we seen this recently? When demand far exceeds supply. We've seen this with the launch of electric vehicles. Chevrolet announced they were going to start selling electric Silverados, which is their very popular pickup truck. It sold out in 12 minutes. And we've seen this with Rivian, and we've seen this, I believe, with the F-150, these electric trucks. It's like people, they sell out immediately the amount they think they're going to be able to produce, and everybody else has to go on this wait list. It's great. That's what happens with innovative new technology like electric vehicles. Once everybody realizes that it's highly desirable, demand outstrips supply. And just to be clear, the article goes to great lengths and very effectively explains it's not due to any constraints in the SundaeSwap protocol that the execution of these orders is going to take so long with this huge surge of adoption right upon launch. It's really due to network constraints. It's due to the current sort of parameters of the Cardano network. As we've discussed quite a bit on this channel, we don't yet have SIPs 31, 32, and 33. Of course, SIP 33 is going to be the one that gives us reference scripts. So SundaeSwap is going to have to be putting the scripts they use into the block along with, every single batch of these orders. So when they get things like SIP 33, it's going to increase their ability to deal with this kind of congestion massively because the network's ability to deal with this kind of congestion is going to be expanded massively, maybe orders of magnitude, along with some of these improvements in parameters like these 12.5% block size increases and the memory units available in each block also being increased. And they're doing it very conservatively. It's been made clear that a lot of the dApp developers, of course, they think that the speed at which IOHK is increasing these parameters is very conservative. But at the same time, people acknowledge that IOHK has got to worry about that propagation time because it's a proof of stake system. And if your propagation time gets too long in a proof of stake system, you start running into problems. So they're very, very conservatively increasing these network parameters to increase the throughput in the network. And, I mean, by the end of the year, it seems like, from all accounts, it seems like the network's ability to handle congestion is going to be massively improved by the end of the year through all the things we've talked about. Those network parameters, things like SIP33 and reference scripts, SIP31 and 32 as well, and things like input endorsers and pipelining, and of course, Hydra. Of course, SundaeSwap made this thread after that article had been published to kind of break down some of the numbers and explain in even further detail exactly what was going to happen with the congestion upon launch. And it sounds like after this initial surge of adoption, this initial congestion upon launch ends, then it'll be a lot easier for them to supply the amount of demand to use their DApp. But what I think is really interesting about all this is the difference in the way Cardano addresses demand outstripping supply, at least of throughput of the network. When they have too much congestion, what happens? It's a very different approach than Ethereum. In Ethereum, gas fees become excessive. Even right now, as I record, I pulled up Etherscan gas tracker, and to do a Uniswap swap, it costs $62. These are not the highest prices you're going to see on the Ethereum gas tracker. You're going to see prices far in excess of that. And that's what's so interesting, I think, about Cardano. So Cardano has deterministic fees. Cardano fees, I mean, the Ethereum gas tracker here is, we have ranges and guesses, that kind of thing. But the Cardano approach is to make fees deterministic. And yes, when you have this huge congestion right now, when the Cardano as a smart contract network is in its infancy, and we haven't gone through all these 12.5% increases and all the other network optimization and other optimizations, it might take a little while when we're very, very congested. And let's face it, the SundaeSwap launch is going to be, maybe the most congested we've ever seen Cardano. This is like one of the biggest events that's happened in Cardano as far as usage of the network. We instead of having to pay crazy amounts of money to get your transaction through, you might have to wait a little while because we have deterministic fees and along with that deterministic state. This is part of why there's so much anger and hatred toward Cardano, because the big Achilles heel of the Ethereum network is the inability to scale expressed as crazy fees. If Cardano doesn't have that and it works and it's actually decentralized and it doesn't crash, that's an untenable situation for Ethereum maximalists. So we're going to see some massive network congestion around the SundaeSwap launch. It's the most hotly anticipated thing ever on the Cardano network, aside from some of the big hard fork combinator events like Alonzo and Shelly. This is a big event, and we're going to see a massive amount of congestion. And the critics are going to misrepresent this as representative of the utmost capabilities of the Cardano network. But what they won't be talking about is that this has nothing to do with the capabilities of the SundaeSwap protocol. This is just the current parameters of the network, of the Cardano network. And those parameters are all set to be slowly increased over the next year, along with all the other optimizations. And by the end of the year, it seems like by the end of the year, this is Cardano and software development. So who knows? You can't really set any kind of timeline on software development. But by the end of these optimizations, at least this an initial timeline of optimizations, I'm hoping they're optimizing the network forever. But after they get done with these currently planned optimizations, I don't think the critics are going to have a leg to stand on. There will no longer be a case that Cardano is somehow a falsehood. And I don't know where the critics will go from there. There won't be much effective bargaining left for them to do. They'll be down here at the bottom of this curve. That's not something I wish on anybody, but according to the Cardano denial curve, they're going to have to go through the bottom of that curve, before they get to where Vitalik has appeared to be for most of the last year. Vitalik is already in acceptance. He already knows. I believe he already knows what Cardano's about to do. And he's already accepted that because he actually understands how the Ethereum blockchain works compared to the way the Cardano blockchain is about to work. And I think that's why we see Vitalik in interviews saying, "Hey guys, you can't judge Ethereum based." I'm paraphrasing. This is exactly what he said, but basically he's saying you can't judge Ethereum based on where it is right now. We've got another 6 years of things we want to do. We won't get to 100% optimization for 6 years. So judge us based on we're going to be in 6 years. I think that's because he already knows. He already knows what Cardano is about to become and some other blockchains. I mean, he's not just worried about Cardano, of course, but I think chiefly he's probably, I should say, he's probably substantially worried about what Cardano is going to become compared to what Ethereum is still going to be. And I think I'm looking forward to the rest of the Ethereum and Bitcoin maximalists, like, or some portion of them coming through this curve and getting to this acceptance thing where we're no longer hearing all these crazy claims about Charles Hoskinson and Cardano and the exerting of this pressure to get people to somehow believe that Cardano is still a falsehood. I think that's all going to have to end. And we've still got a ways to go through this curve, but I don't think by the end of our network optimizations, I don't think the people currently saying those things will really have a leg left to stand on. Talk to you tomorrow.